Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we have quite a heartbreaking and heavy topic to discuss. If you follow family vloggers or family channel commentary here on YouTube at all, you have probably seen the news that Ruby Franke of 8 Passengers and her business partner Jodi Hildebrandt have been arrested and taken into custody. Today we're going to discuss what happened and what we know so far. I'd like to point out I am filming this on September 4th, so if anything comes out on this day or like within a couple of days until I post this, I just want to give an update on what day this is. So this is everything current up until September 4th. I'm going to start out with a brief backstory on who Ruby is, just for those who may not be familiar. I would assume if you clicked on this video, you already know. Ruby Franke and her husband Kevin started a YouTube channel called 8 Passengers, which featured family vlogging and their traditional lifestyle because they are Mormon. Over the years, the 8 Passengers channel had gained a ton of subscribers and views, and since then, Ruby has faced a lot of criticism for her parenting style and choices. Honestly, there's way too much that Ruby's been called out for, but I will link a channel down below if you are interested in catching up on the whole thing. Channel named Marky. He has extensively covered Ruby, 8 Passengers, and her subsequent business ventures extensively on his channel, so I'll link that down below. But a few things to point out that Ruby was criticized for over the years of family vlogging and her parenting styles. Really, she took punishments way too far, and she always has. She displayed her extreme punishments very loudly and proudly on her YouTube channel. A few examples of that would be that there were times where she had taken away her son's access to his bed and he was sleeping on a beanbag, and not just for a night or two, which even that would be insane, but for months at a time. She also removed his door, I believe. Her son was also sent to a wilderness camp. She also took away some of her kids' phones for like a year at a time. A phone is a luxury, not a right, but to take away and restrict their access to like being social, their access to communicate with their friends for an entire year is very extreme, and that is definitely very manipulative to do to them. I'm not using their names just in honor of privacy. I know their names are out there all over the place, but I just don't really want to spread them, especially with what's going on. But her young daughter, who was 5 or 6, didn't have a lunch at school, and Ruby was called by the school and asked if she could bring her some food to the school. Ruby said no, she refused to do that, and she asked the school not to give her daughter food because she said the natural consequence of her forgetting to pack her lunch is that she will have to go hungry unless she can find a kid who's willing to share food with her. And she said that it was her daughter's responsibility at the age of only 5 or 6 to remember to pack her lunch every day.
My bedroom was taken away for 7 months, and then you give it back like a couple weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that.
You've been sleeping on a beanbag.
I've been sleeping on a beanbag since October, and they gave my room back like 2 weeks ago. Oh, I'll give you the reason why I lost my bedroom.
Do you think it's funny? Because
And then I walk out.
if you think it's funny, then that was 7 months ago. Maybe you need longer without a bedroom.
When I went to Anasazi, Mom got mad and there were a ton of clothes on my floor, so she donated all the clothes that were on the floor. So I came home to like 3 pairs of pants and like 5 shirts. So
today has just entered the Anasazi Foundation Wilderness Therapy Program, where he's going to spend the next 8 to 10 weeks living in the
Anasazi Desert.
yeah, the desert mountains of Arizona.
She said that did not pack a lunch today, and can I bring a lunch over to the school? This happens quite often. I know that her teacher is uncomfortable with her being hungry and not having a lunch, and it would ease her discomfort if I came to the school with lunch. But I responded and just said I was responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did pack a lunch. So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry. Hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch.
So those are a few of the big things that I remember from over the years, but honestly there's been so much more big and small things. Like I said, it's just way too much to even go over here. A lot of you have probably already heard about this anyways, but that's 8 Passengers. So that was on the family vlog while they were still 8 Passengers, and it was Ruby and her husband Kevin. And Ruby actually stopped posting on 8 Passengers when she joined a group called Connexions with Jodi Hildebrandt, and they also created a group called Moms of Truth where they focused mainly on family advice and parenting advice. And honestly, the advice was terrible with that. There's been so much controversy about that. And then also something of note, just a brief history on Jodi. I know less about her because I've mainly followed through 8 Passengers to becoming Connexions and Moms of Truth. But Jodi had been a family counselor for a long time, and back in 2012 her license was actually revoked due to her not maintaining confidentiality between herself and a client, and she shared really damaging details about the client with the Mormon church, who was very judgmental to begin with of the issues. And then for a while, from what I've read, she had to be supervised while taking clients because her license was restricted and revoked. So it's a very brief history for those who are unfamiliar. Like I said, there's so much more to it, but really the point of this video is what's happened more recently, which is the arrest. So on August 30th, Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt were arrested in Utah at Jodi's home. News of this traveled very quickly online, and the details were more shocking and heartbreaking than I think any of us could have imagined. So this initially came out, I don't know if this is how it came out, but a lot of people caught wind of this when Ruby's daughter, Sherry, who distanced herself from the family, she no longer associates with her immediate family, like her parents. She posted on her Instagram story a picture of them being arrested and said, "Finally." So that circulated very quickly, and of course people were desperate for information, and details have started to emerge now about what actually went down. So according to the news release, Ruby Franke and her business partner, Jodi Hildebrandt, were arrested at Jodi's home in Ivins, Utah. Sorry if that's not how that's pronounced. I've never been to Utah. And the details that came out about the arrest were Ruby's 12-year-old son had climbed out the window at the house and ran to a neighbor's house to ask for food and water. The neighbor then called the police, and according to that call, they said that the child appeared to be emaciated and malnourished with open wounds and duct tape around their extremities. The police who arrived at the scene had recorded the wounds and malnourishment of the boy to be severe, and then they also found a daughter in the home still, and her condition was very similar. Shortly after the initial news came out, Ruby's sisters did address the arrest on social media. They wrote on a shared Instagram post, "For the last 3 years, we have kept quiet on the subject of our sister Ruby Franke for the sake of her children. Behind the public scene, we have done everything we could to try and make sure the kids were safe. We wouldn't feel right about moving forward with regular content without addressing the most recent events. Once we do, we will not be commenting on it further. Ruby was arrested, which needed to happen. Jodi was arrested, which needed to happen. The kids are now safe, which is the #1 priority." It definitely seems like behind the scenes things were going on for some time. I'm not sure if they've made reports to police or anything like that, but it definitely seems like they were at least somewhat aware that Ruby's behavior was not okay. And I don't blame them for not saying more than that. I'm sure they don't want to damage the case at all, and they just want the kids to be safe. So I think that's a perfectly reasonable response, and this would be very difficult on them. I can't even imagine going through something like this. Right away, I would say a lot of people were questioning if Kevin, the kid's father, was involved in any of this, and I will say that none of the arrest records that we started hearing about or the news articles had mentioned Kevin at all, so it seems like at least at this time he's not involved in the arrest at all. I'm not sure. There was rumors circulating that he had been taken in, but it's also very possible that he had been taken in to give statements or for questioning, which would make sense, but again, I can't confirm that. There's been no written confirmation of that at all. As all of this came to light, a lot of people had pointed out that in prior months, Ruby was deleting a lot of content from social media, and the 8 Passengers channel, which had stayed up for some time after she had stopped posting on it, was deleted as well. And that was deleted more recently, like within 3 to 4 weeks ago. Relatively recently, considering that she hadn't posted on it for about the last year at least, in favor of posting on Connections and with Moms of Truth. So it's interesting to me, and this is complete speculation on my part, but it makes me wonder if maybe she had an inkling that something was happening and was deleting evidence. I don't really know. I will say a lot of people have clips from that downloaded, so there's only so much control that she would even have over that. After the initial news was broken, more reports started to come out, and the details were even more shocking and horrifying than I think anyone imagined. I know it's definitely worse than I was imagining even possible. Of course, a lot of us knew that it would be bad. Anyone who's followed Ruby knew that it wouldn't be great, just because typically if what you show on camera is bad, behind the scenes is even worse. But I honestly think, this is just my perspective, but I didn't imagine it to be this bad, just because I thought that Ruby seemed so self-assured that she thought what she was doing was so right, that I honestly felt like behind the scenes and on camera it would be the same, if that makes sense. It's hard to describe that, but I feel like I didn't think it could be so much worse off camera, because I thought that she was so sure what she was doing was right that she was proudly showing it on her channel. Hopefully I'm making sense and you guys get what I mean. The story and allegations were even more horrifying than anyone could imagine. I'm reading these from a Business Insider article, and initially the arrest was reported on Fox 13, which is according to this article. So this Business Insider article states, the mother behind a formerly famous YouTube channel has been arrested under suspicion of 2 counts of aggravated child abuse. We will touch on that after. Ruby Franke is listed on the Washington County Sheriff's Office webpage as in custody after being arrested at 9:33 p.m. on August 30th in Ivins, Utah. Her business partner was also arrested at the same time. That's Jodi Hildebrandt. According to a statement from the Santa Clara Ivins Public Safety Department that was shared with Insider, a child climbed out of a window at a residence in Ivins, Utah to get help, which led to the allegations of abuse Franke is being charged with. The residence belonged to Franke's business partner, Jodi Hildebrandt, who was also arrested in the case. Local outlet Fox 13 reported. The child ran to a neighbor's house to get help, Fox 13 reported, and asked for food and water according to the statement. The neighbors noticed the kid had duct tape on their ankles and wrists and decided to call the police. The child was taken into hospital where they were treated for severe wounds and malnourishment according to the statement. After the first kid escaped the house, a second malnourished child was found in the same residence in similar physical condition of malnourishment. According to officials, the second child was also taken to the hospital for treatment. According to the documents, Franke filmed a YouTube video from the house just days before the arrest, which adds to Miss Franke being present at the home and having knowledge of the abuse, malnourishment, and neglect, Fox 13 reported, citing the documents. Now that's key, and the reason why they added that in there is because she cannot spin it as that she didn't know. She wouldn't be able to pin it just on Jodi, because there is evidence of her being in the house, and the state that they were in would not have happened within just a few days. So they're saying that she was aware of the state of the children, given that she was in the same house as them. Now that Franke and Hildebrandt have both been arrested in Utah, the definition of aggravated child abuse includes starvation, broken bones, head injuries from hitting or shaking, and suffocation. If intentionally inflicted, the perpetrator faces up to 15 years in prison and a fine of up to $10,000. When the news broke of Franke and Hildebrandt's arrest on Wednesday night, Sherry posted a photo of a police car on her Instagram story with the word "finally." "Today has been a big day," she said in another post. "Me and my family are so glad justice is being served. We've been trying to tell the police and CPS for years about this, and so glad they finally decided to step up." There are questions about the whereabouts of the rest of the family too. The second oldest child is also thought to have moved out, but he has not posted publicly online since the family's channel shut down. Kevin Franke, the father, was also once involved with Connexions but has been out of the public eye for several months. Fox News reported that Springville Fire Department responded to an incident at Hildebrandt's home earlier that same day at 3:44 p.m. for almost 2 hours. It is unknown if these incidences are connected. Another article stated that the children have been taken into the care of Child Services and Ruby is being held without bail. So that's huge as well, because I honestly figured when I first heard this that she would pay her way out of it, and I figured she would be out right away. That was one of the first articles that had come out about the details, and then on September 1st an Insider article was published that contained further details about the arrest and the charges laid against both Jodi and Ruby. Both of them, I will post up the warrant, I don't know what this is called, but the documentation stating the charges laid against them, but both of them were charged with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse. Each of the charges is a little bit different, just pertaining to different types of injuries. I'm not going to read the full thing. So according to the Insider article, on Friday, the county attorney in Washington County, Utah, announced 6 formal charges against Franke and Hildebrandt, saying that the counts relate to 2 of Franke's children, 10 and 12 years old. Each defendant is accused of causing or permitting serious physical injury to the victims in 3 different ways. 1, a combination of multiple physical injuries or torture. 2, starvation or malnutrition that jeopardizes life. And 3, causing severe emotional harm, the county attorney said in a statement shared with Insider Friday. Each of the 6 counts carries a possible prison sentence of 1 to 15 years and a fine up to $10,000, the Washington County Attorney's Office said. The Department of Child and Family Services took 4 of Franke's children into custody following the arrest, according to the affidavit. Franke's eldest daughter, Sherry Franke, 20, is estranged from her family and celebrated her mother's arrest. Rightfully so, I do not blame her. An Ivins, Utah resident who lives near the Franke family told Rolling Stone that he and other neighbors called authorities several times on Franke out of concern for the children. The unnamed resident said there seemed to be weeks at a time where the kids were left at home without a parent. Neighbors reached by Insider Thursday declined to comment on the goings-on at the house over the past several months. In early 2022, it started getting weird, the neighbor told Rolling Stone. People were concerned because Ruby completely stopped her YouTube stuff, and then it just kind of turned dark. She taped up paper over all of her windows. She would disappear for weeks at a time, and there's all these little kids just left alone in this house. So that's insane. Again, that's just an account from a neighbor, so we can't really confirm or deny that, but given everything else we've heard, it's unfortunately not shocking at all, and honestly likely is true, but who knows? All of this is so much more heartbreaking and shocking than I could have even imagined, like I've said a million times in this video. I knew that the behavior was bad. There's been so much problematic behavior shown through her YouTube channel back when she vlogged with the whole family, and even just in statements made on Connexions and Moms of Truth. But I think everyone who knows about the behavior of Ruby that's been shown on 8 Passengers hoped it would never be this bad. I can't even imagine how the family feels, but I truly hope that Ruby is not somehow able to flip her way or pay her way out of this, and I really hope that the kids can stay together under the care care of a loving and suitable family member. Ruby and Kevin did divorce about a year ago, and I'm not sure what involvement, if any, Kevin had or what knowledge he had of this. According to Kevin's attorney, Randy S. Kester, he had said urgent focus is simply to keep his children together under his fatherly care. So I think that that's Kevin's goal with this. I really can't say whether I think that's good or not. It really will come down to them thoroughly investigating to see what involvement Kevin had in this behavior. And then just a few extra details here before we finish this off. Ruby's sister Bonnie did make a statement that was posted to YouTube. I'm not sure if it was deleted, but I couldn't find it. However, it was still on TikTok. So I will play that here now.
I've got regular scheduled content that was supposed to go out tomorrow, Friday, and it is Thursday evening, and this week has been nothing that I could have anticipated. I don't think any of us could have really anticipated. If you have the internet, you have seen news articles on my sister, Ruby, from the 8 passengers. And my sisters and I, we are on the very same page. We put out a message. You can read that on Instagram. And for the last 3 years, we have truly clung on to each other and offering support to one another. And I don't think any of us could have ever seen this coming. We all did as much as we could legally, and you don't know what you don't know. I do feel a little bit numb at this point. The only thing that we ultimately care about is that our nieces and nephews are safe, and they are. And that is the only thing that matters to any of us. It is going to feel weird for me to move forward. And I think, do I just move forward?
Just take it a day at a time. Who knows what anything has in store, but we just know right now that those kids are safe.
I don't have any thoughts even for myself. I don't know what I would even tell myself, let alone tell all of you. I think times like these is where it really tests your belief in God. And I know that timing is everything. And I know that they will be taken care of. I know the kids will be okay. And I know our family will be okay. And things like this happen. And somehow we each find a way to move forward, no matter what situation you're finding yourself in. The sun rises every day, the sun sets every day, and each day you move forward. That's all you can do.
So that was Bonnie's statement on what happened. Obviously she didn't say a whole lot, and I really don't blame her. There's only so much she can say. Bonnie had said in that video, even just trying to talk it through on her own feels impossible, let alone trying to present those thoughts to an audience. I can't even imagine the position that the family is now in as a result of Ruby and her actions, and just the heartbreak that they would be feeling for these kids who are part of their family. And then just a few final updates. So Sherry was asking people to report the Connections page because she didn't feel like that content needed to be online anymore, or that it was appropriate to be online. And from what I can see, it was taken down. At least the YouTube page was taken down. And from all of this, I can hopefully say with certainty that Ruby's online posting will hurt her defense, and at least I'm hoping it does. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know much about legal stuff, but I can only hope that all that evidence compiled, which Sherry was asking for everyone to send in whatever they had in a Google document where everyone was compiling videos that they had saved of 8 passengers. I would assume she wants all the proof that she can get, and I don't blame her. I'm truly hoping that all of that serves a purpose in the end, and that it can be used in some way to help make sure those kids are fully protected and that justice is served. And all I can say is that she was always so gung-ho on teaching her children about consequences to their actions, and now she will have to face the music and the consequences of her actions. After news of Ruby's arrest broke, neighbors did start to speak out, and we're starting to see a little bit of that trickle through in articles now. So I just kind of wanted to include some updates on what they've been saying, because I do feel like it's very telling of the situation. The neighbors have spoken out about how they've tried to contact police and CPS regarding Ruby's behavior in the past. So according to a Daily Mail article, and again, I'm going to be reading this from my notes just to make sure that I don't misquote anything, the neighbor said that she made contact with Child Protective Services in Utah in September 2022, so a full year ago at this point. When authorities called at Frank's home, there was no answer, the neighbor alleges. "I want those kids to know the community loves them and wants them to be safe," another woman told the network. "If people knew the amount of tears and time time spent talking with law enforcement and CPS over the last year. I want people to understand that, and I want those kids to know that because I think they thought they were abandoned," she added. Frank's husband, who she shares 6 children with, was seen at the property on Saturday as a man came to remove the YouTube branding from the van parked outside. Over the weekend, Daily Mail spoke to one of Hildebrandt's neighbors, whose home is also in the community located at the base of Red Mountains in Ivins, Utah. They recalled seeing Frank's 8-passengers van regularly parked in front of the home at the time. "One thing we noticed, and we told the police the same thing, 6 to 8 weeks ago when it was really hot, I was outside in the late morning, afternoon, pulling weeds, and over at Jodi's home, several kids were also outside her home pulling weeds. Over the course of the day, the temperature was over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Just for reference, because I had to look that up, that's about 37 Celsius or more because they did say it was over 100. And I gave up after a while because it was so hot, but I noticed the kids stayed out there," the neighbor explained. This is in reference to the child who escaped the home and ran to a neighbor's house to ask for food and water. The neighbor said they believed the child picked that particular home after they had been given cookies by them at Christmas time and knew them to be friendly and safe enough to go to them for help. So this next thing that they said is extremely telling and honestly just horrifying to even hear. But they said, "Everyone is just breathing a collective sigh of relief because we thought they were going to come out of that house with body bags," another neighbor said to NBC News following the arrest. So that's how severe that they knew this behavior to be. The article goes on to detail the arrest, which we've already covered earlier in this video. And then just a few more statements from neighbors. "I remember that she took away their Christmas one year and she would say things like, 'They're not repenting correctly,' which is a Mormon term for 'they're sinning.' Just complete insanity," a male neighbor explained. The local residents also told of how Frank would interfere with the lives of their neighbors. One recalled an incident where Frank lectured her neighbor of what she deemed to be inappropriate posters of women posing in shorts that were on display in a garage. Kevin Franke is believed to have been kicked out of the family home last year. Once Kevin had departed the family home, one neighbor said it appeared the children stopped going to school. There was also another article I found posted on Independent which detailed a lot of the same claims, but they did provide a little bit more on some of what the neighbor said. So despite the extreme control she seemed to want to exert over her children, neighbors said that she would regularly disappear for weeks at a time, leaving the children home alone. Her youngest daughter, age 10, would allegedly be left to wander the neighborhood to look for friends. She would just knock on the door and say, "Hi, can your kids play?" the neighbor said. And we were like, "Well, they're at school. They won't be home for 3 or 4 hours." And she'd be like, "I'll wait." The man said that she's like this lost child and it seems as though she wasn't enrolled in school. Neighbors said that they tried to get police to intervene, but the past welfare checks were rejected by Miss Franke. I've seen some criticism, mainly on TikTok, stating that the family and neighbors didn't do enough to try to help. There have also been people saying it seems like the family didn't care at all until all of this was brought public. Commenters were especially critical of Ruby's sisters, claiming that they didn't address any of this because it would have tainted their perfect family aesthetic. I personally have to say, I don't really find that to be true. From what I've seen in the past, it seems like Ruby completely cut them off and disconnected them from her part of the family. And from what I've seen, they have actually actively spoken out on how much that hurt them, on how it's damaging to the family. And it's possible even that because they were so cut off and restricted from access to Ruby and her kids, they might not have even known the entire extent of just how bad this got. It seems like things got even worse when Ruby distanced herself from everyone, divorced Kevin, and when she was even further involved with Connexions. And at that point, it does seem like Ruby had pretty much cut herself off from the rest of the family. So I feel like it's very possible that they maybe didn't even know the full extent of it. And I will also say, I mean, again, like I said earlier, I'm not a lawyer, but it does make me wonder how much they could share publicly, given that if they are reporting these things to CPS and the police, I would be hesitant to share that if I was in their shoes, because I would be weary of sharing these things online, possibly damaging a potential case that would come forward in the future if action was taken against Ruby, which I think ultimately was their goal. I feel like it's easy for people online to criticize, especially neighbors and things, saying that they weren't doing anything and how could no one be helping these kids, things like that. But also at the same time, it's not like reporters were in the neighborhood asking neighbors for statements until this all went public, but that doesn't mean behind the scenes that neighbors weren't actively calling police, calling CPS, which as we're hearing now, they definitely were. And unfortunately, from my knowledge and just hearing things online, it takes a lot to get CPS and even police sometimes to look into allegations of abuse. I mean, it sounds like they went to the house and Ruby simply said no to the welfare checks, so what are they going to do when she's controlling whether or not they can come in? Sadly, this is evidenced by numerous cases of abuse. Despite the neighbors and family calling and reporting and doing what they can, the reality of it is sometimes that isn't enough, and sometimes it does take way too long for police or CPS to get involved when they should have stepped in way before. But yeah, that's the update as of now, September 5th. I just figured I would include that all in one video since I still had the opportunity to. From what I've seen so far, the initial court appearance is scheduled for September 8th. Now, that won't be like a trial or sentencing or anything. That is all the information we have so far on what happened. I'm personally not going to make a new video for every update that we get. Just that's not really my style. There are tons of YouTube channels who are doing that. Again, Marky, I've mentioned him a million times in this video, but he's a really good source if you want quick updates that are as things happen and as the situation progresses. I will make an update video if and when we have more information in a similar style of this one, compiling it all. I'm not going to make small update videos every time that we get any new information. I'd rather wait for more information and then put it all together. Overall, this is absolutely heartbreaking, and all I can say is that I'm glad the children are now out of that situation. All I can hope is that when it comes time for sentencing, that justice is served, because the trauma that these kids are going to have to live with is lifelong and it will be severe. With all that being said, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.